moving on Tucker. He turns, he shoots. Yes! With 1 second remaining. 1 second left. Durant hits a three.
He's really on the ball with it. Durant was a 2-point field goal. We'll review it for a 2-3.
Now, I'm sure nobody forgets this infamous Kevin Durant shot. With just 2 seconds to go in the game, Kevin Durant throws up an absolute prayer, and he drains it. The problem? His foot was on the line. What could have completely altered NBA history as we know it, changed the complete course of not only this game, but NBA seasons to come. As history has it, Kevin Durant's deep two-pointer tied the game up at 109, sending this pivotal Eastern Conference Semis Game 7 into overtime, where the Bucks would still end up winning that game, sending the Brooklyn Nets home and propelling Milwaukee on a path that would give them their first championship in about 50 years, including Giannis's first ring. Now, this shot by Kevin Durant still is being talked about everywhere. I mean, it did create a huge butterfly effect for the league. It completely changes Giannis's legacy. The Brooklyn Nets are completely different today as they were then, and no doubt that shot going in would have definitely changed their history course. Maybe there'd be a new powerhouse in the East. There's just so many unanswered questions that we'll never find out due to Kevin Durant's long, lanky feet. But let's travel into an alternate dimension here. This dimension, Kevin Durant's feet are just an inch smaller. In this timeline, the NBA takes a complete different turn. So let's imagine this scenario right now. Before we explore this alternate reality, if you guys could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that'd mean a lot. This channel has been growing very rapidly due to your guys' support, so it means the world to me. Trust me, if you guys subscribe to the channel, you will not regret all the content I pump out for you guys. Now with that out of the way, let's go journey into this alternate reality where Kevin Durant has smaller feet. So with 2 seconds remaining, Kevin Durant heaves up the 3-point attempt and it is good, giving the Nets a 1-point lead with just about a second remaining. The Bucks will need a game winner and Giannis still would huck up that weird looking shot attempt that does not even come close to the basket, sending Brooklyn on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now even this alone already changes legacies completely. If this happens, Giannis doesn't have a ring right now, and same with every other player on the Bucks roster. Not to mention the path for Brooklyn to make it to the finals is clear. Atlanta is one of the weaker teams in Eastern Conference Finals history, and with a couple of days rest, Harden will be feeling better from his hamstring injury, and in about 2 to 3 games, Kyrie will return from his ankle sprain. It's game 1 of the series. The Nets are still without Kyrie Irving, but they do have home court advantage. Trae Young still drops 48 points in this game like he did against Milwaukee in game 1. And due to the Nets being really banged up with Harden still trying to battle through his grade 2 hamstring injury and Kyrie's absence, the Hawks get a tough-fought victory on the road, 121-118, taking a quick lead of the Eastern Conference Finals. Game 2 would be different though. The Nets would rebound and have a bounce-back game, as their roster still is very talented even without Kyrie. Kevin Durant has a solid 38-point performance, and James Harden is slowly easing back from his hamstring injury, dropping a solid 22. The Nets win this game 125-118, tying up the series at 1 apiece. It is now Game 3 in Atlanta. Kyrie returns from his ankle sprain injury, and the Nets have their big 3. Durant has another great 36-point performance, Harden with 20, and Kyrie with a slow start because he's returning from an injury. But still, with this big 3, Atlanta cannot hold off all the star power, as the Nets win 118-107. Game 4 in Atlanta, Trae Young and John Collins both have huge bounce-back games, as Trae Young drops 41, John Collins with a very supportive 23 points. They narrowly beat this still banged-up Nets team. As you can tell, Kyrie and Harden have nagging injuries throughout this game. The Hawks would win this game 109-103, tying the series at 2 apiece. The series returns to the Barclays Center in Game 5, as this energetic momentum from the fans helps power Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and Harden to all put up solid performances, each player scoring 25 or more points. The big 3 is intact, and they played magnificently together, getting a really comfortable 133-116 win against Atlanta. In Atlanta, Game 6, the Hawks face elimination, but the Nets' star power is just too much in this game as the big 3 continues to get more comfortable with their injuries, and they put on a show in Atlanta, winning the game 125-115, led by Kevin Durant's 38 points, Harden scoring 29, Kyrie with 21. The Hawks just have no business even being compared to a fully healthy Nets roster, as the Hawks had a great run this postseason, but the Nets are just way too talented. And this would send the Nets to their first finals appearance in 18 years, matching up against the Phoenix Suns led by Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Now, keeping this simulation kind of realistic, there's no way that all three of the Nets starters would be fully healthy throughout the remainder of the playoffs due to their injury history. So let's say that James Harden for games 1 and 2 is monitoring his nagging hamstring injury and will miss the first 2 games of the series. In game 1 of the series in Phoenix, the Suns get off to a huge hot start, with Devin Booker and Chris Paul draining everything. Cameron Payne, DeAndre Ayton, and Mikal Bridges are also having very solid supporting roles. Kevin Durant and Kyrie do put up very good performances in this game, but without Harden, it's just not enough for the depth that this Suns team has. And the Suns win this game 119 to 105, getting an early lead to the series. Game 2 follows a very similar style, as Devin Booker and Chris Paul once again light it up. However, this game is much closer going into overtime. Booker and Durant have dueling 40 pieces on both sides, and Kyrie and CP3 are both great supporting players with 28 points each. Devin Booker hits a huge three-pointer to put the Suns up by 3 in the final 30 seconds of the game, and the Suns wisely double-team Kevin Durant and then Kyrie Irving when he has the ball, causing them to pass the ball to an open Joe Harris in the corner, which he misses, ending the game and giving the Suns a 2-0 lead on the series, similar to their series against the Bucks. If Harden was there on the court, perhaps he could have been taking the shot to tie the game up. Game 3 of the series is back in Brooklyn, where Harden returns from his injury, and it actually works out in the long run as he is now rested and he puts up a phenomenal Game 3 performance, being the leading scorer of Brooklyn, dropping 35 points. Durant would aid in this, dropping 27 of his own, and Kyrie with 21. The Nets put up a valiant effort, but in the fourth, the star power of the Nets pulled away at the last second, securing the victory 126 to 113. In Game 4, the Suns hop out to a very quick start. The end of the first half, the score was 58 to 46. Devin Booker with 27 first half points. However, the second half, things just flipped. Durant, Kyrie, and Harden were all shooting with pinpoint accuracy, just displaying the star power. Joe Harris made some notable threes himself. LaMarcus Aldridge turned back the clock and had a solid 16-point performance on efficient shooting. The Nets were firing on all cylinders in the second half, and they had what ended up being a very comfortable win, 128 to 106, tying the series up at 2 apiece. Game 5 returns in Phoenix. However, there's another injury to a Big 3 member of the Nets. Kyrie is dealing with a minor ankle sprain and will miss Game 5. The fans in Phoenix are electric as their team takes the court once again, and a strong supporting game by Cameron Payne with a great 27-point performance. Devin Booker also had 25 of his own, Chris Paul 16, but Durant and Harden did put up a valiant effort in trying to carry the team, both scoring 35 points or more, Durant with 41. But Phoenix would once again regain the series lead 3-2. However, in Game 6, the Brooklyn Nets bounce back and tie up the series 3-3 after Kyrie returns from his injury and drops 34 points, winning the game 109 to 101. All of the talent and injuries in these finals made it go to a Game 7, the first Game 7 since Warriors vs. Cavaliers in 2016, and we see the best of both teams here. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving all put up amazing performances on great efficiency. In the end, though, it would be the Brooklyn Nets winning the 2021 NBA Finals, and the Brooklyns get their first NBA championship. So as you can see, Kevin Durant having smaller feet had huge playoff implications that season. But it wouldn't stop there. This also would affect seasons to come. With a ring behind their belts, there'd be much less controversy throughout the team. The Big 3 definitely would have stayed together. James Harden would not have been sent off to Philadelphia. Let's try to figure out what record the Brooklyn Nets would have during the 2021-22 season if they had James Harden, and the Big 3 remained intact. So for the first 55 games of the season as we know it, James Harden was still on the Brooklyn roster, and they had a 29-26 record. However, it was after that James Harden was traded off to Philadelphia in exchange for Ben Simmons. The Nets without Harden would finish the remainder of the season 15-11. Keep in mind that Kyrie was still missing every single home game due to his vaccination status. But with Harden, that would have given Durant a reliable number 2 option while Kyrie was out for this time. I think realistically, with Harden in this final stretch of the season, they go 20-6 instead. With Harden still on the roster, the Nets would realistically finish with a give or take 49-33 record. If we compare that record to the ending standings of the 2021-22 season, they'd be the 5th seed. However, we also need to keep in mind that James Harden is not on the 76ers, who are the 4 seed. That being said, it's pretty logical to think that the 76ers would drop maybe around 4 or 5 games. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they'd have 4 extra losses this season if James Harden did not finish the season with them. Therefore, the Brooklyn Nets would now have the 4 seed and the Philadelphia 76ers would have the 5th seed, and they would go against each other in round 1 of this year's playoffs. Remember that the 76ers roster at this time is completely up for speculation. Ben Simmons this season was holding out with his back injury the entire time, and with James Harden still on the Nets, that either means that Ben Simmons is still on the 76ers or they found a different team to trade with. And realistically speaking, I do think that the 76ers would still find a way to trade off Ben Simmons. So let's say the second most likely trade in this scenario happened where they give Ben Simmons to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for John Collins, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and a couple first-round picks. You guys are now clearly seeing how many butterfly effects this Kevin Durant shot really has. Changes that could change an entire league. Now with the addition of John Collins and Bogdan Bogdanovic on the 76ers, their lineup is more serviceable than when they had an inactive Ben Simmons. However, it's still not enough to go up against this Brooklyn Nets Big 3. I believe the Brooklyn Nets will win their first 2 games at home. In classic playoffs fashion, they drop Game 3 in Philadelphia, only to win Game 4 to secure a 3-1 series lead. And in my opinion, the Nets would also win Game 5, winning the series in 5 games. You could argue that the 76ers do squeak out 1 extra game, but bottom line, the Brooklyn Nets are easily making it out of this first round matchup. In the conference semifinals, they'll face up against the Miami Heat, who actually would have gone against the Atlanta Hawks with Ben Simmons. He still probably would have been holding out this time. So that means it pretty much was Trae Young himself against the Miami Heat. I have Miami winning this series in a sweep. But now to the matchup at hand, Brooklyn versus Miami. On one side, you have Durant, Harden, and Kyrie. The other side, Butler, Lowry, Adebayo. A very talented matchup, and the Heat would have home court advantage throughout the series. I feel like the first set of games 1 and 2, would be split between both teams. Probably Miami winning Game 1 off the gate with the fan momentum, and Brooklyn with all their talent quickly bouncing back in Game 2. I also like Brooklyn carrying Game 2's momentum into Game 3 to take a 2-1 series lead, but I think just like Brooklyn answered, Miami will answer as well, winning Game 4, tying the series up at 2-2. Game 6 is in Miami. I think Brooklyn bounces back. Kevin Durant probably has an insane game right here with good supporting stats from Harden and Kyrie. They get the win and they lead the series 3-2, and I think it is safe to say that they would wrap up this series at home in Brooklyn, winning in 6 games against Miami Heat. Miami's a very talented team. However, if you go on a talent-to-talent basis, I don't think they match up against Brooklyn. Once again, you could argue that this series goes into 7 games. I personally believe 6, but I think no matter which way you have it, Brooklyn does come out victorious of this series. And for the second year in a row, they'll be making the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics. This series happened the year prior where Brooklyn won in 5 games, and now we see it happening again. In reality, Boston won this series in a sweep. So will James Harden completely change the outcome of this series? Well, let's go from a game-by-game analysis. Boston does get home court throughout the series, and if you remember in Game 1 in real life, Jason Tatum had a game-winning layup. That game was so neck and neck, I think Harden would easily be the differential in that game, and I think the Nets would jump off to a 1-0 series lead. However, this season, the Celtics were one of the most resilient teams in the playoffs, going undefeated in games after loss at this point in the season. So I think they do get the bounce back win at home in Game 2 and tie up the series 1 apiece going into Brooklyn. I have Brooklyn bouncing back on their own in Game 3, taking the 2-1 series lead once again. But in common Celtics fashion, they are insane in back-to-back games, and they get the Game 4 victory in Brooklyn, heading back home with the series tied at 2 apiece. I think this is where a team finally wins 2 games in a row. You have the Celtics momentum coming into the TD Garden, a very loud stadium, and they get a close win. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown have been balling out at home, and I think the overall depth of the Celtics is better than the Nets' big 3 star power. Game 6 is back at Brooklyn, and I think Brooklyn does get a win here, and they force a Game 7 as the series is tied 3-3. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, with all their experience in the postseason, come up huge in this game, and they even up the series. But Game 7, you have TD Garden Game 7, one of the loudest places on earth. Along with the fact that the Celtics, like I said before plenty of times, they're an insane bounce-back team. I think the Celtics will win Game 7, knocking off the defending champion Brooklyn Nets in a very close game. Heck, for the fun of it, let's say it goes into overtime. And I think overall, just the youth, the stamina, and the depth of the Celtics will carry, and they'll go up against the finals against the Golden State Warriors. So what does that mean for Brooklyn? They won a ring, and they made it close to making their second finals appearance in a row. Does the team stay together? I think they still stay together. I mean, losing Game 7 in a conference finals game is nothing to be ashamed of. That's a very deep postseason run, especially considering the fact that they won the finals the year prior. However, I believe in the 2022-23 season, this is when the Nets start to slow up like we see them in reality. The players are getting older, they aren't as successful as that championship season, and with this age, there's going to be a lot of injuries, a lot of losses on the record. The regular season record isn't going to be up to par with all these younger teams, and that's going to mean a harder postseason path. I think the upcoming season, they would maybe be a second round exit, and the season after that is when you'd see players like Kevin Durant leaving to go to Phoenix, Kyrie to Dallas, and Harden to maybe Philadelphia, probably a different team if they already traded for Ben Simmons. And to extend this hypothetical even further, I could easily see James Harden going to the Miami Heat, and that once again completely changes the course in the league for future years to come, as Miami would quickly be considered a powerhouse. I mean, look at their roster with Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Bam Adebayo, all of that depth they have. All of these butterfly effects just continue to be created, and they all come down to that one Kevin Durant shot where his foot was on the line. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That'd be much appreciated. I really enjoyed making this video because the hypothetical of Kevin Durant making a three-pointer in that situation is huge. It completely changed the landscape of the league in ways that I haven't even discussed. Like, I only touched the surface on all the butterfly effects that this would create. Now, I was doing some research, and apparently Kevin Durant is a size 17 shoe, but he wears size 18. And people are saying how if he wore a size smaller, he would not be on the line, but that's actually not true. He'd have to be a size 12 or smaller for his feet to actually be behind the line. So that's why I'm just titling the video "If His Feet Were Smaller" to avoid any confusion. Once again, guys, make sure to subscribe to Heaps. It's a great channel. If you love sports, you will never be disappointed with all the content I'm uploading. You guys are the best viewer base one could ask for, and I'll see you guys in the next Heaps video.